Viola Liuzzo was a white civil rights activist from Detroit who supported equality for all people. She was born in the small town of California in rural Pennsylvania on April 11, 1925. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, Viola's family migrated south in search of jobs and a better lifestyle. Eventually, her family settled right here in Michigan due to the great amount of factory jobs. Viola rebelled against her family in 1941 at the age of 16 and married a man twice her age. The marriage did not last long at all, one day to be exact, and Viola married again to George Aragius 2 years later. Because of this long and journeyed childhood, Viola's internal life became motivated by new life experiences. Now I would like to talk about Viola's children. Viola divorced George Aragius in 1950, and Viola gained custody of all their children. Viola married another man, Anthony Jim Liuzzo, later that same year. Along with Viola's children, Penelope and Evangeline, from George, Viola and Jim gave birth to two more children. Thomas was born in 1951 and Anthony Jr. in 1955. Sally, a daughter born in 1958, was born extremely frail and limp. Doctors did not believe Sally would survive. However, at age 3, Sally was declared normal, and this was considered a miracle. Viola held several passions. Even though the autobiography that I read was very short, Beatrice Siegel, the book's author, gave the audience several examples of instances Viola showed passion in her life. Viola had a passion for dancing when she was young, even though her parents, particularly her father, disapproved. Viola also had a passion for animals, often bringing home to her husbands stray dogs and cats. But most importantly, her passion for civil rights should be considered her greatest passion. That is why she is considered such a remarkable person of this era. Viola held several deep values in her life. Although they were not clearly discussed in the story, I found research on my own that Viola protested against a law that allowed students to drop out of school more easily than they could when Viola was a child herself. Viola knew firsthand that dropping out causes unfortunate circumstances for a person's future. Dropping out of school may have a feeling of freedom, but in the long run, it pays dividends to simply stay in school and gain an education. At this time, college was still mostly considered a choice, while now it is mostly considered a requirement for a person to have a successful future. Now on to the events that led to Viola's death. Viola packed up her car here in Michigan and decided to travel to Alabama. Selma was the town where a march was beginning to proceed to Montgomery, the state's capital, to protest the lack of civil rights. During the journey, many blacks and white activists walked down U.S. Route 80. When they arrived at their destination, Viola needed to return back to Selma to pick up her belongings and head back to Detroit. However, as she was traveling back west, Viola noticed followers behind her. She tried speeding up on the road as much as her car could go, but there was nothing she could do. When the gunmen approached her, they took their 2 shots. Viola's car went off the road and fell into a ditch. Viola's passenger, Leroy Morton, was lucky enough to escape with only blood on his body. Viola was not alone in being a non-Southern civil rights activist. Several Northerners agreed that all races should have equal rights. However, Viola was one of few who felt comfortable traveling south to support the march and activism events. Viola traveled to Alabama in her own personal car, along the whole way with no security. There was various security officials during the walking march. However, Viola still had visions of Klan members attacking her or verbally assaulting her during and after the march. It was as if she only knew her impending fate. The subject of Viola's worldview will conclude this video. Viola took every chance to show generosity, patience, and good nature in her personality. Viola helped various charities before her death. Viola's sense of passion has helped people realize such a remarkable person she was. And of course, civil rights was her main worldview. She viewed every human being as equal and wanted to fight for her belief. This is what led to her travels to the South and ultimately led to her murder.